Welcome back to another battle report from the Brotherhood of Broken Banners. I'm your host today, Adam, and I'm bringing you a wild match between my Martell army and friend of the show, Rich's Targaryens. Rich has been spreading his wings and trying out some different factions, but falling back on some familiar strategies. I'll be running Harmen Uller, a defensive commander, and one of the more resilient units, Sunspear Royal Guard. This unit can both take a beating and hopefully dish it back out between Shield Wall and Martial Training. Joining him are the infamous Scooty Shooty Sand Skirmishers, whose job it is to harass enemies and pepper them with arrows. Additionally, the Starfall Knights hope to ride down any fragile units with their Starfall Lances, granting Sundering, extra dice on the charge, and potentially panicking and weakening the defender. To round it out, the army has a cheap point center in Martell Spearmen, who aim to use their set for charge to ward off errant chargers and the tactical reposition to provide value elsewhere on the battlefield. Rich chose a commander I have found to be a ton of fun, Jorah, with his commander cards helping slip you into places your opponent just doesn't want you, and ambush to load your opponents with condition tokens. He will be in Dothraki Veterans, whose quick fire and swift retreat make them a very maneuverable unit while still being able to do a lot of damage. Their new 4-up armor means they can take a bit more of a beating than the previous editions. Additionally, the still insane Dothraki Screamers join the fray, led by an attachment Arcaro, which is unusual to see unless you're playing against Rich and his love for Sentinel. The inability to become weakened is actually huge against Martells, who rely on these tokens to stay alive and well. A unit of Outriders helps deter slower armies, punch through armor, and force the opponent to act while still being very maneuverable. And to round it out, a unit of Brazen Beasts, led by none other than Belwas, with the newly reworked Battle Scars being able to grant a bunch of useful effects to their attacks to make them both very punchy and tough to attrition out. For NCUs, I opted to take a relatively traditional approach to the suite. I brought Harmen's daughter, Alaria Sand, for token removal and conditional application. Next, we have Arian Martell, for the ability to shut down strong orders like Sentinel, or attachment abilities like Sentinel. Rounding out the list is Eris, mostly there to attempt to block the Sword Zone and keep the strong but removable Martell Tactics cards attached to my opponent's units. Rich is taking some traditional and some new picks. First off is the Khaleesi herself, Dany, for rerolls and to remove the pesky weaken tokens I worked so hard to put out. Next up is newcomer Miri Mazdur, with passive healing and a powerful replacement to put out both a panic and weaken token. I'm starting to wonder who the actual Martell army is. Finally, Quaithe can bolster the already impressive mobility of this faction, giving you a maneuver, march, or retreat if the chosen enemy performs any actions. That is, if you remember to use her ability at the correct time. As we're getting set up here, just wanted to let everybody know this game was filmed at Rogue State Games up in Mahwah, New Jersey. You can see me putting out some weirwood trees and Rich putting out some spikes, hopefully to either hide some Outriders behind or to create a lane. You could also see him putting a bog down to slow down the not cavalry army on my side so that he could really punish me. Flipping over the objective cards, nothing major of note. There is some panic and vulnerable going out as different objectives are scored. We roll off for turn order and deployment. I win the dice roll. I elect to choose my side of the battlefield and have Rich deploy his units first. Starting out deployment, Rich puts his Outriders on one side of the stakes and I put my Spearmen on the other, trying to have them towards the middle so that they can use tactical reposition on multiple units. Rich puts his Brazen Beasts with Belwas right down the middle in order to be able to sentinel off of the most different areas. The Sand Skirmishers hang out near the bog as their shooting isn't affected by the terrain rules. Arcaro is deployed, and I'm starting to see which side Rich is favoring, so I deploy the Starfall Knights to the other end of the battlefield to potentially sweep around and flank his army. Jorah is put down at the very far end of the battlefield, so Harmen Uller takes center stage so that he can fight the onslaught of Sentinel units. And with that, the game begins. To start things off, Battle Endurance is played from my opening hand onto Harmen's unit, and Arian takes the letters shutting off one sentinel unit, weakening the Outriders, and drawing cards. Rich counters by using Dany to remove the token when she claims the horses, moving his slowest unit forward, the 6-speed Brazen Beasts. I play the second Battle Endurance. I was fortunate enough to draw off Arianne and use Eris to claim the bags to not lose tempo with the NCU board. This may have been overzealous, but time will tell. Miri is used to replace the Swinging Crown ability with her insane token generation, and I counter with Ilaria, trying to keep the weakened tokens off my Lance Cavalry. With the non-combat shenanigans out of the way, Rich measures out a safe distance he can move Jorah forwards and hops right over his home objective. Clearly, he's not looking to win off of objective sitting. I scoop my shooters forward, hoping to be able to disincentivize a charge by having them sit right behind the bog. Rich brazenly moves his beasts forward, using the spikes to screen his flank from a charge. I shimmy Harmen's unit forward to close my skirmisher's flank and to meet his aggression before I'm pinned in my deployment zone. Rich marches his screamers forward, and I'm starting to regret leaving my skirmishers out to face multiple cavalry units alone. I move my spearmen forward to keep them near the front line of my army, and at the start of Rich's turn, use their tactical reposition to move my Royal Guard closer to my skirmishers so that they don't die alone. However, Rich has an even cooler start of turn effect that he pulls off. Swift reposition can let a unit make a 3-inch maneuver if you control the horse zone. Dothraki veteran have quick fire, allowing them to shoot after a maneuver or a retreat. This spicy combo allows him to get 5 total inches and a few dice in, which I even take a wound for. After that exciting play, Rich gets his actual turn, where he moves his Outriders up to hide safely behind some spikes, threatening my spearmen and my cavalry if they move into shooting range themselves. Because of this, I need to move my cavalry in a way that they can't get shot, while Rich gets to tell me all the wonderful ways he wants to have Jorah run over my army. With that, the round ends, and I'm already nervous about round 2. Rich has been extremely aggressive and hasn't given me much time to set up the defenses that Martells usually like to get going. The first round veteran shot not only took a wound off, but put him in a position to easily get me in the flank next round. Top of the round, we clean up some errant game pieces, and Rich discards a betrayal card, which I'm happy about, as that way he can't use it to cheese out a win later. Rich takes the swords and flips off my spearmen as he indicates he's going to take the free pot shot on them when Outriders, gaining long range, +1 to hit, and precision because they haven't moved this round. Quite a good 6-point unit. Rich rolls his hits, and while my defensive rolls are also pretty good, they weren't good enough to stop myself from getting ranked. Looking back, it might have been a good idea to put my 5-up defensive unit in a place that wasn't threatened by Outriders. However, we live in the world we make. I'd try and salvage the situation a little bit, using Arianne to take the bags, and then shutting off Rikaro's Sentinel ability, and also the ability for Brazen Beasts to Sentinel when I attack them. Rich claims the horses with Miri Mazdur, and having all the mobility he needed last round, decides to once again show off her Season 4 change by panicking and weakening my skirmishers. I decided to pass the turn by activating and passing with Eris, so that I don't lose Alaria's activation. Rich, smelling blood, decides to swing Jorah around, quick firing into my flank. Not only does he manage to take off 2 wounds on a 4-up attack, but I critical fail the panic check without even needing to have the panic token used on me, losing over a rank before he even gets the charge off. Fortunately for me, the charge was less devastating, as I was able to use Dune tactics so that the veterans threw a measly 4 dice. Unfortunately for me, Jorah was in his second favorite place after the Khaleesi side, which is my army's flank. Even if the charge was less devastating, it still ranked me, and a failed panic check gets me in the danger zone for basically any attack at this point. I have to decide if I want to call that unit a loss or consolidate my army back. However, pulling back means I'm guaranteed to lose the points race, so I decide to push forward with the Royal Guard and block other units from getting to my skirmishers easily. I go for the 3-up charge and make it, and suddenly this is actually a little bit of a game. I position myself to take the charge for the skirmishers, and will rely on the Aryan influence to save my Royal Guard from being a glorified springboard for the Brazen Beasts to sentinel charge into just to retreat off of. Martial training giving vulnerable tokens out means I make quick work of the Screamers, ranking them and removing their threat by taking them from 7 dice down to 4. The Dothraki's excellent morale actually is a negative in this case though, as I use the fact that they passed their test to play Spiteful Truce, healing my skirmishers up a whopping 4 points and making them an actual unit again. Things are looking to maybe be going my way. Or maybe not. Rich has his sudden retreat, allowing Ricardo to run away from my Royal Guard, and because Ricardo has elusive escape, I can't even pivot, and I become weakened. There have been so many weakened tokens, it's getting kind of insane. Ricardo flies away from me, and suddenly I can see a world where my skirmishers do not get to live happily ever after. Trying not to give Rich too many options on what to do on this turn, I used the tactical reposition from my spearmen to move them backwards out of threat range from the Outriders. Looking back, this unit is looking more and more like it was deployed in entirely the wrong area, as set for charge and tactical reposition could have helped to fight off the oncoming Dothraki Horde much easier. Rich collects some tithes and proves that he indeed does not sow, while he has Dany claim the letters, giving Ricardo rerolls, filling his hand back up, and weakening my lance cavalry yet again. I shimmy my spearmen around outside of Outrider threat range, giving a lot of respect to their ranged attack. Rich gets ready to do the thing and asks if I have any started turn effects. I think his body language says all there is to say when I play Rising Temperatures and shut off the ability to use tactics cards on that unit. He charges it anyway and shows off why he loves Belwas and Brazen Beasts, and I have to say, I'm also impressed. +1 attack dice, critical blow, and vicious, all while shutting off my shield wall and iron resolve means I'm in for a load of trouble. In the flank, with no shield wall, means I go from being able to stop almost all of the attacks to saving less than half of them. And even with the tree, no abilities means my normally excellent save becomes an 8-up. Not that I would have passed it anyway with that 3. At this point, I try and slow it down again, playing Alaria on the crowns, zapping the only unit not within the trees that I so foolishly put out, who passed the check, of course. I remove the weakened token from the Starfall Knights, trying in vain to get them ready for a clean attack. So far, they just sat around, waited for the Outriders to let their guard down. Rich plays another really cool Jorah Commander card in Marshall, letting a cavalry unit forgo either their free cav maneuver or their main activation to heal 3 and remove a condition token from themselves. The fact that he is powering the Screamers up means that I feel like Harmen is in the danger zone now, which I guess is to be expected when you have him charge headfirst into the enemy. The charge is made, and all 7 dice manage hits. With the Sundering in the flank, only 1 save is successful, which Rich asks for a reroll of, and I give him some peace when the roll is another save. Shield Wall saves 3 total, and Harmen's very close to dying after another failed panic check of a 3. Sometimes you're the Burgermeister, sometimes you're the burger. I don't want to risk retreating my skirmishers and getting another charge done by Jorah, so what I do is I turn to face, move farther into my own deployment zone, and swing back with a couple swords, doing actually more damage than I thought I would. It's Rich's turn to scoot around, not seeing any shots he wants to make, and my turn to smell blood in the water. The Lance Cavalry are armed and ready to go, so I charge, hoping to get a good hit in over the spikes. Of course, I take the maximum amount of damage from the spikes themselves. I roll the dice and get 8 hits, which is a lot of hits, but not quite enough to do a one-shot, which is kind of what I was hoping to do. I easily rank the Outriders, but of course they pass their panic check. And with that, we go into round 3, after quite an interesting round 2. The end of the round has us at 0-0. However, with Harmen at 1 wound, I highly doubt that score is going to stay that way for very long. Round 3 starts with me putting a Roynish Vengeance out, and Rich choosing to use his Blood of the Dragon on the Brazen Beasts, and Quaithe on my skirmishers for some reason. I had no intention of doing anything with the skirmishers at that point though. I wanted to get my value out of Harmen before he went the way of the dodo. So, I activated Ilaria, and removed the weakened token from the skirmishers as a little treat, throwing it on the Brazen Beasts, and had Harmen make an attack with Rakaro, using martial training to try and push the damage through. A failed weakened token on Rich's part, and I successfully rank his unit again. And now, since Brazen Beasts and Rakaro are both tied up, I'm not fearing a Sentinel charge at this moment. Rich has the Brazen Beasts throw their attack into Harmen. Even at a -1 to hit from rising temperatures, he still manages to land 5 hits before the weekend, and still 3 after. Safe to say though, Harmen's toast, even if I did roll double 6s on the defense to match Rich's hot dice for the attacks. Rich lines up his Brazen Beasts to Sentinel charge into my Starfall Knights should they try to do anything funky. Arian takes the letters, I draw some tactics cards, and shut off the Brazen Beast's abilities. And I weaken Jorah for good measure. Rakaro's unit is activated, and Rich has them get within Skirmisher's personal space before he charges. A not 1 is rolled, which was super important for Rich as he had quite the flurry of cards prepared. Feinting Maneuver into Opportunist. Between all these effects, my archers were set up to take massive damage even off just the 4 dice that were being rolled. But I'm allowed to have tactics cards too. And between a lucky 6 that got re-rolled into another 6 and Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken, I was able to not get ranked and debuffed his Screamers to maybe fail some panic checks. Not wanting my skirmishers to die to some random Jorah shenanigans, I quickly used Eris to heal them up with bags. Rich responded by using Neri to heal 1 on Rakaro's unit with her passive, and she claimed the horses, using those horses to retreat Jorah, readying him for another charge while taking the point. Quickfire tries to be useful, but with the weakened token, the only wound was self-inflicted when a 1 was rolled, now that Roynish Vengeance is active. While that's happening, I activate my Spearmen and claim the point on the other side of the field. Rich declares a charge with Jorah, and I respond with rising temperatures, since he never actually said that the unit was activated. Rich agrees he'd still make the same move though, and charges in anyways. Some very lucky blocks were balanced out by an unlucky panic, and I lose a good chunk of the unit. However, Rich also loses enough wounds to take a full horse off from the attack as well, so I'll take it where I can get it. A well-timed Dune tactics means that my knights on the spikes don't have to perform any actions this round, and I can start to slide my skirmishers out from being literally boxed into the corner. I get to do my own quick fire, and I think that Rich was less than impressed compared to his own veterans. Khaleesi activates and claims the crowns, and of course, after using the panic token, I fail it, taking 2 more wounds. My lone skirmisher then gets to fire for his actual activation, shimmying even farther into the board, trying to make himself a harder target for Jorah, managing to do not so much damage. To end the round, the Outriders swing into the Starfall Knights, managing to rank them and fully turning it into a wet noodle fight. With that, round 3 is over. We both score 1 VP each, bringing the scores to a staggering 2-1, and we distribute the tokens associated with the objectives we control. Round 4 starts off spicy, with a charge from Recaro onto my skirmisher out of the gate. However, I drew into one of the funnier cards for the situation, set for charge. I get to attack first, and I roll my dice, and honestly managed to do better than the last ranged attack where I used scout openings, so I'll take it. Recaro finishes off the skirmisher and turns around, ready to sentinel charge into any unit foolish enough to swing an attack. Me, being the cheeky guy who doesn't know when to give up, activates Arian and turns the sentinel off on the Brazen Beasts. I really do not want to give him a good sentinel trigger if I can help it. I realign with the Outriders, taking maximum damage from the spikes, and attack with my Starfall Knights. I do decent damage on my standing attack, and even put the Outriders into dies to a panic fail range, but alas, they're braver than ever. Dany activates, taking the horses again, so she can move the Brazen Beasts up and get them into position for a flank charge on my Starfall Knights. I can see the writing on the walls, and I'm just trying to get them to last as long as I can. I activate Ilaria and take the bags, removing all the condition tokens from my Starfall Knights and putting a weaken token on the Outriders. I'm making it so the Brazen Beasts have to commit and charge in over those spikes in order to kill my Starfall Knights. The Brazen Beasts take the bait and charge over the spikes, taking maximum damage. However, because of rising temperatures, they don't manage to land enough hits to be lethal. The knights fail the panic check, but the second Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken keeps them alive and makes the Outriders even more frail. I activate Eris, trying to panic the Outriders and finally get them off the table, and with the panic token, do manage to make them fail and take a grand total of 1 wound. Yay! Jorah, seeing how he's out of the fight for the rest of the game, sits a point and it comes back to me. Idleness is death, so I can't pass when engaged in a melee, so the knights declare a melee attack against the brazen beasts. All of my maximum damage rolls pay off because I survive to make the attack on the beasts, knocking them down just a few wounds. That's all I need. The failed panic check from the brazen beasts is just the icing on top of the cake. In the end, the Outriders are finally able to take the Starfall Knights after they made so many attacks on top of spikes and were attacked by multiple units. I'm not quite sure why Rich didn't go for the point there, as I'm pretty sure he had the movement had he wanted to. The Spearmen finally get their day in the sun though, because with an almost fully stacked battle endurance, they're able to charge down the Brazen Beasts, one-shot them from their last rank, and pull back right back onto the point. As the last activation of the round though, Rich activates an NCU and replaces the effect of letters with Betrayal, scoring him a VP and healing Jorah. I see my one shot to bring the game into a closer race and put Betrayal on the Outriders who have triple U on them. Top of round 5, I activate Eris and do the only reasonable option, try to panic bomb the Outriders who are now worth 2 victory points. Like almost every other panic test made by the Targaryens today, they pass, and with that, I offer a handshake for a game well played. That game was quite the battle. Some issues with deployment meant that there was definitely an uphill battle to be fought by me, and Rich was able to push the issue very well. I think if I could do that game over, I'd try and be a bit more assertive instead of waiting for the horses to cross the narrow table and run me over. On top of that, I think the Starfall Knights probably could have done ignoring the Outriders and went and gone and checked the rest of the cavalry instead. If you guys liked the video, please drop a like and leave a comment. Even if you didn't, tell us what we can work on. If you want to see more, please subscribe. It really helps a new channel grow. See you guys around for the next one.